Greetings! It is I, Tentus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue our discussion on the lands, legends, planes, and planeswalkers of Magic the Gathering, where I describe to you information about the various world settings of Magic the Gathering so you can learn a little bit more about its history and the interesting places they've come up with. Today, I'm going to introduce a new land to you, Gavony, within the plane of Innistrad. Now, Gavony is an important place within Innistrad. It is the bastion of humanity where the majority of its population exists. Here, hidden amongst its high walls, is Thraben, the capital city, effectively, of Innistrad. The place where it's the center of a Vassian church, where humanity holds its greatest stand, where it is relatively safe and has remained that way through much of what has happened across the land. While a lot of the other settlements that exist and have popped up around it may still have threats, Thraben has remained relatively safe. Now, Gavony itself is rugged moorlands and mountain hills, with occasional trees and small stands of forest popping up here and there, small villages dotted throughout it. Now, unfortunately, when Vassia disappeared, geists began to wander these moors. Gavony happens to have the most dead buried within it than anywhere else, and this did cause a lot of problems. Undead, stitches, and geist callers rose up and came into the area when Avassia was gone, and especially dark cultists moved in that worship demons. Gavony itself has been under the effect of major events in Innistrad, with the disappearance of Avassia, her reappearance, her madness, the rise of Emrakul. All these things have had great impacts upon the province, but it has remained strong and continued on. Now, there are 5 parishes within Gavony. The entire kind of structure of the government is based upon the religion of the Vassian religion. So church and state are intertwined. So everything is based upon these parishes, basically major church centers, if you will. You have to think about each parish as almost a country unto itself. So the most important parish within Gavony is, of course, Thraben, the high city of it. It sits upon the top of this mesa in the middle of the Lake of Heron. It is this shining city where is the center of the Vassian religion, as I said, where the largest cathedral remains within. 5 walls of various use protect the city and keep it under wraps, preventing werewolves and vampires from having their invasions. 2 major events have taken place there over the past couple of history. First is the Siege of Thraben, where the 2 sibling necromancers, Geralf and Gisa, united together with their forces in attempts to take over the city. They united their various armies of zombies and undead and attacked the city. And while Gisa kept everything busy, Geralf snuck in and actually was responsible for the striking of the Luminarch, Mikaeus, and killing him. Luminarch being the basically head of the church at the time, below Avassia, the angel. So, but unfortunately, this actually left the battle open, and Orderic, one of the high-ranking defenders of the city, managed to catch Gisa along the way, and effectively set up some of what was going to happen in the next sort of big history, leading to the, once again, the separation between the 2 siblings. Of course, this did end the siege, and of course, Thraben survived, though the loss of a powerful figure. Now, and of course, only like the first defenses were broken. The inner walls were never broken. Now this leads to the second event, the Battle for Thraben. This is when the forces of Olivia Voldemar and her vampires united with the Order of St. Traff and the Gatewatch to fight against the mutated Eldrazi spawn of Emrakul and the cultists that Nihara had assembled and battled for the city as Emrakul watched over everything. If it wasn't for the undead army that Lana Vess rose up, it probably would have ended badly, and eventually it ended with 2 actions: the imprisonment of Emrakul within the moon by the forces of the Gatewatch, and the striking down of the mutated Brisilla by Sigarth, the only angel which continued to side with humanity after the madness of Avassia. These 2 events led to the downfall of those forces, and the victory over the Battle of Thraben. Now, of course, Thraben was known for having the highest-ranking people and the aristocrats, but they did have major buildings, usually in many of the towns, that were very well defended, or out into the rest of the parishes. But let's talk about the next set of parishes, because it's the Nearhearth. The areas closest to Thraben, there are 3 major parishes: Vetus, Withal, and Effallen. These three parishes make up most of the rest of Gavony. Now, each of them is known for their relatively medium-sized towns, where they have some defenses. They're not the best protected, but they're also relatively safe and haven't had the kind of damage as many of the other places Innistrad has. Gavony still has remained safe no matter what has happened to a degree. Bad things have still happened, but not to the degree in some of the other provinces. Farmers and artisans are very important in any of the towns here. So let's talk about the region known as Vitters, that parish. It is a known area for vast vineyards and for having the river Kirch pass through it. The town of Hanweir was actually the largest agricultural center in all of Gavony. The river Kirch passed through the city, so it ended up being a major port for a lot of trade from a lot of the other provinces and areas of Innistrad, traveling materials from there into the other places within Gavony, making it a major trade center. Hanweir attempted to actually gain its freedom and become its own parish, separate from all the rest. Unfortunately, things did not go well for them, as the coming of Emrakul mutated the entire town into one massive Eldrazi ooze, effectively destroying this massive agricultural center, kind of dealing a pretty powerful blow, but also creating a pretty horrific, powerful monster in the same process. Now, Whitall is the most forested area in all of Gavony, this parish is. It is known for its dark, dense forests, and was once home to some howpacks, which have now become extinct, so there was a threat in amongst these forests that did exist. Estevalt was the largest city in this area, and the second largest city in all of Gavony. Now, not as important as Hanweir was, but it was the second largest, and it was known for its craftsmen and woodworking. Unfortunately, it was also known to be plagued by werewolves. For a time period, the leering werewolves, they had kind of murdered and plagued a lot of places and kept things pretty at bay. Unfortunately, Estevalt was eventually destroyed by the being known as Malignus, a powerful elemental which, during the time that Vassia was away, wipes the entire town out, so it also no longer exists. Now, Fallen is the rockiest area. It's also the most desolate area of all of Nearhearth. It has the smallest villages kind of separated, the least amount of people, they are the least defended, and it is the closest to the area known as the Moorlands. There are only a few small shrubs that can really be found anywhere in this place. It was also plagued by vampires, and it hunted in many of the villages there until Avassia's return drove them back into their own territories. Now let's talk about the Moorlands, because that's the fifth and final parish. The Moorlands is an area very few humans live in. There are a few villages which create the government of it, but far and few between in comparison to many of the other places. It is mist-covered moors and rocky outcroppings, and areas that geists and monsters just plague very much. Very little travel is through the Moorlands. It is very dangerous. There are abandoned estates there, places that were once well defended, that the nobles moved out of and have left to somehow be re-inhabited by who knows what at this point in time. This is the place where Trostad lives. It was a small trapper village near the territory of Kessig, which was overrun by scabs, the minions of Gareth. He actually made it into his base of operations, which he's been in since that point in time, after effectively clearing out the village of all life. Other important villages are Merwald Downs, where the Riders of Gavony, one of the more powerful protective groups within Gavony, are stationed out of, and Vestvale, a small village that is known to be completely occupied by cultists. Any kind of travel in this parish is under complete risk. You do not know what geists, werewolves, or vampires exist within the darkness, or zombies at this point in time. Dangers are around every turn when you travel through the Moorlands, the most dangerous part of Gavony. So that's it for today. I introduced you to Gavony, one of the most important territories within all of Innistrad. A place where 5 parishes, each with unique history, and showing off some of the great culture that is within Innistrad. They also have history that relates directly to a lot of the events that occurred. Horrible things have happened in many of the villages there over the history of it, from the disappearance of Avastia and the events that proceeded around that, to the coming of Emrakul and those events. But Gavony, as a province, has continued onwards, has maintained its power. Thraben did not fall. Thraben remained. Much of it was destroyed, but the city itself still remains a shining beacon that humanity is not going anywhere within Innistrad, no matter what any other of the creatures would say. So if you have any questions, comments, anything you say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to support the channel, the Empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you could always check out my Patreon, link in the description below. If you would like to check out some more Magic material on the days I'm not putting out things, I can recommend Card Bazaar, They Said, We Said, and Tasty Snackies, some friends of the multiverse I have. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.